Joined now by Klaus Jurgens from Innsbruck, Austria. He's a European affairs analyst. Good to have you back on the program, Klaus. This pandemic really did exacerbate the existing inequalities that exist in the world. We heard there that the rich simply got a lot richer during this pandemic, while millions of others literally lost their livelihoods. Why did it take a pandemic to expose these massive inequalities?
Yes, thank you for having me again. Now, this is a vital point, and I think Davos is a perfect example of how things should not have done. Now, you mentioned only a pandemic shed light on the growing inequality and the problems our shared planet is facing. Now, let's go back a little bit into the history of Davos, if I may. Initially, I think it was a very welcome development that off the record, sometimes on the record, politicians would meet the business community and talk about issues of global concern. Over the years, over the decades, if I may say, it has become more like a showcase, not only showcasing the organizers, but very often not coming up with any precise recommendations how to bridge the growing gap between poor and rich. And in particular, the participants at Davos would have a thing to say about this growing gap. Now, the pandemic happened unexpected. I think this is fair to say. No one would have ever expected something like this to happen. No foresight analysis, most likely, perhaps a few Hollywood blockbusters. Now, this underlines that we are living on this shared planet, what I just mentioned, and many leaders were taken by surprise. We saw a retreat into the nation state. We saw a retreat, first of all, that we have to come out on top. We have to find the best policy sets, and only then did countries begin to cooperate globally, only to let the world find out that the rich nations can get enough vaccinations easily and the poor nations have to suffer until they have access to proper healthcare. I was asked this question shortly after the outbreak of the coronavirus, and I said, which nations can actually cope if this really becomes a pandemic? And I said, I am very, very worried that the richer nations will have faster access, better access, and the poorer nations not. Now, if Davos has a mission, the leaders who will, I now heard that I think during the summer there will be a face-to-face version of Davos, if my information is correct. If the leaders come together, and besides publishing reports, I restudied some of them yesterday, they should really say, what is our task, our mission? Can we bridge the gap between North, South, poor, rich? The pandemic has shown us that we are all vulnerable. Every business, every entrepreneur, every politician can basically become a victim of a virus. Every society where they operate in can become a victim. This should lead to a complete rethink of how we organize our global networking, the interconnectivity, as you mentioned.
Okay, Klaus Jurgens, it is unfortunate that what you predicted has come to fruition, but thank you so much again for joining us on TRT World.
Pleasure.